Welcome to the Phosphine Catalogue, number 15036. We see light where others see only darkness. Well, look at you now, Morwenna. He's painted you very favourably, if I may say. I'll describe it to you, so that if we all somehow get out of this, when we all somehow get out of this, we can have a laugh about it later. You're, well, for starters, though you're wearing a dress made of forest greenery, it leaves very little to the imagination. Hardly the regal ball gown you appeared to me wearing when you transported us to the garden, that liminal space I'd believed only accessible in dreams. But Aldwick has captured the constant motion in the leaves rather well. I'll grant him that. That's if he painted this, rather than used whatever magic he has at his disposal to conjure it into being. This painting. This prison. I can well believe you're trapped in there, Morwenna. I can see you breathing under all those rustling leaves that sprout and grow and die only to bloom again. That dress really is quite something. Not quite my style, but still. God, listen to me. Curating when I should be panicking. I'll describe it how I see it, Morwenna. I'm too practiced to do anything else. Lot number 9011. Seemly Unseelie. Lord Dean Aldwick, assumed. 1976. Oil on stone. 3 foot by 5 foot. A portrait of a sleeping woman in a green dress. The scene is a woodland clearing with a reclining woman in a green dress surrounded by a circle of mushrooms. The verdant grass and moss is thick underfoot, and the figure is lying on a brilliant white cotton sheet, impossibly clean in these woodland surroundings. The mushroom circle around her is made up of dozens of different kinds, from small white bulbs to stately brown flat caps, even some exotic varieties shining bright red and yellow, some oozing with thick black ichor. The blanket of night appears through the gaps in the tree line above, filled with a dense field of stars far brighter than seems possible. The gibbous moon shines in the corner of the piece, illuminating the subject and other figures dancing around the sleeper with pure white light. A troop of nude revellers stomp the outside of the circle. Honestly, Morwenna, given how, sheer your dress is, a curator more prudish than I might be inclined to categorise the whole painting as a nude. I once thought you and Aldwick were intimately acquainted. And given what I now know, I somewhat doubt that. But, as in all art, we learn more about the artist than the subject. This is clearly a subjective representation of your, form, and it's clear that he thinks rather highly of it. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, mind. The troop of revellers is made up of people of all kinds. Young and old, dark and fair, short and tall. But more than that, leaning closer, details present themselves that suggest they're not quite human. Ears seem elongated and pointed. The occasional foot looks more like a hoof or paw, and one panpiper has knees that bend the wrong way, very much like a fawn. None of the party enter the circle. That is reserved for the woman alone, though some do reach their arms out, seeming to implore the sleeper to join their mad dance. Now that I've taken in the painting for a moment, I believe I understand more. The sleeping figure, that's you, Morwenna, wears a delicate circlet of moths, a thin, wispy tiara of shivering white insects. Their wings are open and overlapping, and though the little creatures are grasping at the sleeper's golden white hair at odd angles, there's no break in the insectoid chain. Upon spotting this detail, I looked again at the revellers dancing outside the circle in the moonlight. I see that a few of them are wearing a tiara bearing a single white moth, just above the forehead, like an echo of the moth and crown the sleeper wears. If signifying station or rank, this perhaps suggests a hierarchical court, a mirror of the royalty in our world reflecting in this fey artwork. But I see now that this court aren't dancing around the circle. They're screaming around it. Mouths open not in song but in supplication. Arms thrown out not in dance but in despair. They mourn for their trapped queen, desperate to free her, so she may once again join their revelry. The frame of the image, which is made of the same dark stone as the canvas medium, has been crafted to resemble a typical wooden picture frame, and has been worked to almost a mirror finish. The frame seems to blend into the painting. A secondary inner frame has been painted, with the same design, but made of pigment, not stone. This painted frame is richly rendered, highlighted by white light, and even casts a subtle shadow. It seems to be a diegetic detail. I believe we're seeing through to the frame on the other side of the painting, the one inside the woodland scene. I wonder what's painted on the other side. Is it my office? Or Aldwick's art studio? Or dungeon? Or wherever he painted this from? Can your court see me, Morwenna? Can you hear me? We really need your help.
Hi folks, Tris here, writer of the Philosophy Catalogue. I do hope you love our show. If so, you might be interested to know that there are more episodes available on our Patreon. Between seasons, when Jude is away, Warwick Blackwood is curator, played by yours truly, and he has a very different attitude to curation. Membership starts at just £3 a month, and for your support of our independent production, you'll get episodes a week or so ahead of the public feed, and at higher tiers, the bonus Blackwood episodes, concept art, free stuff from our store, and even your name in the credits. No matter how you support Wolfie and I, even if it's just spreading the word to your friends, thank you so much for making this show possible. Okay, let me turn over this cassette.
Morwenna, I'm sorry. I think Aldwick roped us all into his play because it's part of his plan. It's some kind of ritual, and we all are playing our part. I wondered why he was making so many changes to the Sweno Draig script. It's barely recognisable now. But maybe that's the point. The motions and words we've all been perfecting are part of a... Funnily enough, it was seeing his painting of you that made all this fit together in my mind. A queen is nothing without her court. As it is in chess, so it is in reality. I used to think Aldwick wanted you, but I see now that he wants what you have, the catalogue itself. He's invoking some ancient fey rule, isn't he? And we're all playing along thinking it's some charity theatre. He came by my office after I recorded the description of your prison painting yesterday evening. "Looking forward to the premiere?" he asked me, smiling with too many teeth, fresh as anything. I told him that I would not be associating with the man again and he could take his play and stuff it. I already had half a mind to pack it all in before he stole you away and revealed his hand. Now Jo is missing. I didn't feel much like continuing. I was mostly going through the motions to see how happy she was while under the spell of the play. But after I told him no, he said, good, and laughed like I'd just agreed. He said, "Break a leg, won't you, Jude?" I don't know how, but I found myself on the stage in the bell room that night. Same as before. That was the final dress rehearsal. The premiere is at midnight. I can't stop him alone. Lot number 2033. Misering. Unknown author. Walpurga Press. 1891. A partially burnt leather-bound pocket guidebook to London. I have a curious book in front of me. The leather bindings are blackened, and the edges of the pages are burnt. But rest assured, the tome survives. Burning a book is surprisingly difficult, as although paper is readily flammable, when tightly packed together there's no oxygen to feed the flames. You must tear off one page at a time, which, for a very precious book, may rather feel like tearing out pieces of yourself. The book is a literary walking tour through London's boroughs. The unnamed narrator takes us through the city streets from Marble Arch to Moorgate, from Euston to Elephant and Castle. Each short chapter, of which there are 22, begins with a surprisingly detailed woodcut, which I initially thought unrelated to the content. Though Misering appears a mundane guidebook for the wealthy visitor to London, do not be fooled, dear reader. Your careful inspection in the Forster room will reveal much, much more. My first clue that there was more to this slim book than on initial impression was that it makes no business recommendations. No bijou tea rooms along the King's Road, no must-see arcades filled with the city artisans working their magic, no museums offering glimpses of a grand past or demonstrations of future technical marvels. Further, the chapter names seem to have nothing to do with the areas of London they explore. The narrator takes great care to give us street names, replete with rich asides and anecdotes of adventures and misadventures they supposedly had in that neighbourhood. But the names of any businesses on those streets are notable in their absence. It was only after sketching the route taken in each chapter did a pattern emerge. Our expert historian, Warwick Blackwood, supplied me with a map of London at about the right period. Tell you the truth, Morwenna, he faffed around for about half an hour finding the right one. I told him that any from that decade would probably do, but you know what he's like. He knew he had the right one somewhere, and so I was to wait until he found it. He eventually dug up a Walpurga map dated that exact same year, and given what I subsequently discovered, I think actually no other would have done. I used tracing paper to plot the routes taken by the eccentric tour guide over the course of each of the 22 chapters, and found they drew clear symbols across the face of London. Chapters 1 to 3 made shapes that were certainly meant to be something by their symmetry, though I couldn't then be sure. It was chapter 4 that made me confident that I was on the right track. It was the most complex route yet, winding around the Warren of Soho and looping back over itself. A clear shape emerged in almost straight lines. A triangle over a cross, both equilateral. The alchemical symbol for sulphur, often meaning the soul in the science books from that era. Tracing the rest of the routes yielded 22 symbols, each named with the book's curious chapter naming. Some I recognised, some we're still identifying, but a clear pattern emerged. I spoke with my reclusive housemate, Edward Porter, last night, Morwenna. I was in the kitchen, late, having just opened the bottle of Chianti that I'd planned on sharing with Joe. The scullery door clicked, the air filled with the smell of rain, and there he was, looming on the other side of the square wooden table that occupied most of the room. This dark spectre didn't speak, just looked at me, silently, and all I could hear was the quiet drip, drip, drip of pond water coming out of his sleeves. A surge of anger rose in me, and I broke the silence by shouting my accusations at Edward. Why had he kidnapped Jo? Where was she? Was she safe? What the hell was he, anyway? I was so furious, Morwenna. I don't know how I didn't wake anyone up. To my surprise, Edward's reaction was to fall back into the corner of the room between the scullery door and the wall, throwing his sharp hands over his ears with a look of pain in his large, milky eyes. This rather disarmed me. I can tell you that for now. I may, in hindsight, have rather flown off the handle. I hope I can be forgiven for my assumption, but I do feel foolish. My manners returned upon seeing this pitiable creature, and I was able, eventually, to coax him to sit at the table with me. I mopped up afterwards. I offered him a glass of the wine, which I was surprised to see him drink, and he apologised. Not for spiriting away Joe, but for his act of sabotage at the Catalogue. The supernatural flood, as I suspected, was his doing. But he expressed to me in his slow and halting way that he regretted the outburst. He mentioned you by name, Morwenna, or at least Lady Morgan, and asked me to present his deepest regrets. I'm not sure if I can fathom the depth of those exactly, but there you are. Consider them presented. He told me that on the night I let Joe, that silly girl, talk me into breaking into his studio in the Rossetti House courtyard, he'd reached out in anger at her, but grasped nothing but air. It took a while for him to explain this, Morwenna. I'm translating for you from Old English, Old Norse, or some blend of both. He said that Joe disappeared in front of his eyes. A bright flash of sunlight dazzled him, and when he looked again, he was alone. Alone with his regrets, and the coffin labelled Ornan. We spoke long into the night, me telling him some of what had been going on around here with Aldwick and the play, and him weaving me fantastic tales from what must have been hundreds of years of travelling all over Europe. I couldn't make heads or tails of most of it, but it lent weight to his eventual offer. I won't say here what that was. I can tell you in person if Edward comes through with his promise. We'll see what happens on opening night. We have identified enough of the symbols in Misering to guess at the hidden theme of this supposed guidebook. It's a catalogue of, for want of a better word, muses. We have identified 4 by first examining the map trace symbols, then by reading deeper into the cryptic stories of the unnamed narrator. The 4 are Sussus Naturae, Storge, Gloam, and Tethys. These match up almost exactly to 4 of the tarot cards in lot number 10049. Peter Tidd's outsider art, specifically his depictions named Monster, Mother, Night, and Sea. The final chapter in the book, which in Mr. Tidd's work was the Fool, is represented in Misering as a jagged spiral, a wandering route traversing all of the city in ever-tightening spirals. The centre of the spiral is a Whitechapel address I know very well. I come here every day. What this interesting coincidence means I cannot say for certain. But the final chapter is titled Typhon, the Dragon, the Coming Storm. The show must go on.
The Phosphine Catalogue is a Namtao production. The voice of Jude Francis Sharp is Wolfie Thorns, and the show is written and produced by me, Tris Oaten. For links to our merch store, the music, and Mastodon account, check out the podcast's website, phosphinecatalogue.com. To become a patron of the arts and get bonus episodes and other perks, it would be very kind of you to support us at patreon.com/Phosphine Catalogue. Thank you so much for listening. See you next time.